Hey everyone, it's Jason with the latest episode of the Now to Next podcast. I want to start this episode a little differently because the timing really matters. We're heading into the holidays. Happy holidays to everyone. But what that means is a lot of us are about to sit around tables that we don't usually sit around during the year. It's always an awkward time for me as someone who struggles with little anxiety. Parents, kids, college students home for a break, high schoolers starting to get the "so what are you thinking" questions, relatives asking how work's going, friends comparing moves and notes on layoffs, internships, and what comes next. The conversations are almost always great from an intention standpoint, but they get uncomfortable fast, at least for me. Someone asks a question that used to have a clear answer, and all of a sudden it doesn't. Things like, what are you majoring in? What's a good field now? Are you looking for a job yet? How's work going? What do you want to do after graduation? It's always fascinating to me because no one's trying to create pressure, but these questions don't work the way they used to. And it creates a lot of pressure. That's exactly why I wanted to record this episode before those dinners and gatherings start to happen, not after necessarily. Not as advice and not as predictions, but as a way to name what a lot of us are feeling. And I get a chance to talk to a lot of people who are feeling this so that we don't talk past each other at the table. Because right now, different generations are walking into the same room with very different assumptions about how education happens, how work works, and how careers are supposed to work. And when those assumptions feel awkward, the conversation can either shut down or open up. And I'm hoping that what you're about to hear helps it open up. So I thought I would frame this with the last couple weeks of my life because it explains why this moment feels different. I've recorded four other podcast interviews. Some of you know I'm deep in the process of writing my next book. I've met with three different leadership teams, and I've sat down with four or five people who are all looking for different career advice. They're different conversations, different ages of people. Everyone's in kind of a different stage of life. But here's the part to me that was so fascinating. Every one of them is kind of asking the same version of the same question. Sometimes it was like, what should we be doing about AI? Sometimes it's like, is that what we're teaching? And is it still relevant? Someone said, did I make the wrong career choice? Holy cow. And sometimes, and this comes up more than once, what am I supposed to tell my kids? What advice? Different words, but the same tension. And that's when it started to really resonate for me, which this isn't a job problem or a career problem. It's not an AI problem. It's kind of a map problem, a map where we're going. So here's what I mean by that. In all of these conversations, they look different on the surface. I'm meeting with leadership teams planning for 2026. They have whiteboards, org charts, workforce plans, all doing great work. They're saying, I'm not sure what work will be done by humans and what work will be done by machines. They're not like being dramatic or thinking of it as a headline, but they're just being honest. Then I move into another conversation: college applications, the standard app, tuition anxiety, student loans, internships that didn't turn into jobs. Had one of those last night. A college senior asked me, am I behind or is this just bad timing? A parent asked me, should I be pushing them towards something more practical? Someone in the middle of their career said, I've been successful, but I don't know how transferable my experience really is anymore. That question of relevance, different rooms, different groups, same feeling. But the feeling isn't panic. I don't think it's panic. I think it's like disoriented. People feel disoriented. It's what it feels like when all of a sudden the map doesn't match where you are or what's on the road. And that's why I called this episode, We're Not Losing Jobs, We're Losing the Map. I almost called it something like the career advice we can't give our kids anymore. And that's part of this, but it isn't just about kids. Kids just feel it. What this is really about is a set of assumptions that all of us have been living with about education, careers, effort, progress. I've been living with these. And how many of those assumptions don't really hold true to the way that they used to? The advice we give is really just compressed history, and it's a story about how the world works, but the story's changed, which makes us feel this feeling of hmm, disorientation. So for a long time, the story was simple. Like, we learn the right things, get a degree, work hard, build a career. Not bad advice. It was actually really good advice for the world that it came from. Skills lasted for a long time. My dad and my grandpa were in the same business for 97 years combined. Jobs didn't change fast. You could make a plan and expect the world would kind of cooperate. Cooperate. But that's not the world we're in anymore. There's one stat that I keep coming back to because it explains so much of this feeling of disorientation to me. Most research shows that the half life of skills is about 5 years. And in many roles, it's closer to 2 or 3. So 5 years, let's just say 3 as the median. Think about that. We built K through 12 education, college, corporate learning on the assumption that what you learn will last you for most of your working life, a while. Now it barely lasts a phase of that life. Skills age faster than ever. And it's not about laziness and it's not about being entitled. It's a system that many of us are living in still that's designed for a slower world that's like all of a sudden, I don't know how to say this, crashing into a faster one. This is where AI shows up. Not as hype, not as hype, but an accelerant. AI isn't just changing what work gets done. It's changing how fast everything shifts. That's more important. The speed is more important than the work. If you look at some of the studies, like McKinsey studies, that say 60 to 70% of the time people spend at work could be automated using tech that exists, not jobs, but time. Time. That matters because once the work that we do breaks into tasks, jobs stop being these kind of neat, stable containers. And that's why entry level roles right now are struggling. They feel thinner. Why junior jobs ask for 2 or 3 years of experience. And why people are kind of saying, I'm busy all day. I'm not even sure what I actually own. We're starting to see numbers like AI is impacting 40% of jobs globally. They're exposed to AI. In advanced economies, it's closer to 60%. But being exposed doesn't mean elimination. But what it means is we have to think about how do we redesign. And what's so interesting about this is that redesign doesn't bounce back the way recessions did. I'm hearing a lot of people saying the job market's stagnant, but guess what? It's going to bounce back. We're not in a recession. We're in a rewrite. This isn't just a season. This is a climate change that we're going through. And that's really, really important to think about. So here's why I really want this conversation to happen at your holiday table. When the map still works, advice works. You say things like just work hard, pick something practical. It's easy, just work harder, just grind. When the map breaks, that's when the advice starts to sound shallow, hollow, even when it's well intentioned, which it always is. And I do this all the time with my kids. Parents are just saying, just do what I did. Kids are thinking, well, it doesn't feel right anymore. Leaders are saying we need more skills. Employees are thinking skills for what? Everyone's trying to help. but they're using different maps. And that's why, to me, the storytelling that we're living in right now is so, so important. Not storytelling as marketing, but storytelling that's not even personal branding, but storytelling around orientation, around the change or changefulness that's happening. Stories that help people answer different questions like, where am I really? What still matters? What have other people done when the rules have changed? You know, data tells us kind of what happened, models tell us what might happen, but stories, which I want us to think about while we're sitting at the table, help humans decide what to do next. And that's why, to me, storytelling isn't soft right now. It's hard and it's navigation. And to me, it's where families need shared stories more than ever because different generations are sitting at that same table with different assumptions about how the world works. Imagine the story at the holiday table. I can see it already. This also explains something else that I keep seeing, that the biggest gap, as much as we're saying skills, isn't skills, it's agency. And if you want to have a conversation at the holiday table, talk about agency. The easy definition is the ability to notice change, decide what matters, and move without waiting for permission. Now, many, many people are going to say, Jason, that sounds easy, but it's hard. Agency doesn't come from checklists, it comes from lived experiences. And your confidence, and why we all need stage time to make sense of it. Like, I tried this, it didn't work. I just learned this. I adjusted. That's how people move forward when there's no map or a limited map where we're at now, agency. So if you're a student wondering whether your learning actually matters, that uncertainty isn't a weakness. If you're mid career and you're quietly wondering whether your experience still translates, that's not failure. And if you're a parent, that's not incompetence when you don't know what advice to give. It's quote unquote awareness. Now, anyone who's struggling right now to find a job, thinking about school, thinking about education, I think this is really important that this moment is not a verdict on your worth. A lot of systems, how we hire, what entry level jobs look like, clear paths, they're breaking. They're breaking faster than we're admitting. And that doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that there's a lot of construction. And feeling confused right now isn't a lack of direction. It's what awareness feels like. To me, it's what awareness feels like the awareness before clarity shows up, before it becomes clear. And clarity doesn't come from waiting for the old map to work again. That's the part I struggle with, you guys. There's a lot of people waiting for that old map to work again. To me, it comes from staying in motion, having honest conversations about your story, and building the next step every single day, even if it feels small. I did some personal training yesterday, first time in a long, long time. That was a small step. I got an exercise routine. But guess what? I wanted to build that into an app that I could use. So I did that. That is motion. That's staying small. It's staying small in your movements, not just from a physical standpoint, but a mental standpoint. To me, that's what keeps us quote unquote relevant. There's another thing that's being talked about a lot. It's being talked a lot right now because high schoolers are having to make college decisions. Do I stay in college decisions? And it seems to be where a lot of holiday, I'm not going to say arguments, but disagreements start. And it's not an argument that college is worthless. That's a really important thing to say right now. College isn't worthless. On average, and it's changing, people with degrees still earn more over a lifetime than those that don't. Degrees and college education still opens doors. They provide access. They give you amazing opportunities and networks if you put yourself out there and leverage them. But what's changing, I think, isn't whether you go to school or not, whether you get a degree or not. It's the predictability tied to that. Two people with the same degree can end up in drastically different places. And I think, as someone who went to school, a degree used to be kind of the end of the story. Like, once I get my degree, I'm set. Now it's the setting. And its value depends on how you use it, who you meet, what you try, what you build alongside the syllabus that a college professor puts out. I just put up my syllabus for next semester. It's how fast you're learning beyond what's required. So to me, the real question isn't, is college worth it? This is going to come up at the table. The better question is, how are you or how am I using this magic moment to build judgment, adaptability, which is change, and building my story, creating my story? It's not pressure, it's alignment. And I'd ask you guys to think, zoom out a little bit, zoom out a little bit and say, how are you building and creating your story? It's something I'm going to be teaching this next semester. Careers need the same kind of reset. They're not ladders anymore. They're not really even lattices. They're all experiments. Your first job isn't going to be your identity. It's just your first data set. And what compounds and builds exponential value isn't titles, it's learning velocity. It's the ability to explain what you've learned along the way and show proof of work. To me, in a world where AI is generating so many outputs and should be, by the way, humans, us, we create value by connecting the dots, connecting people. Once again, that's storytelling. And this shows up to me right now when people are job hunting. Notice I'm trying to address all audiences here because all of these things are going to come up at your table. Large companies still matter. Okay. There's a lot of, and people have heard me say large companies are hard. They're hard, but they teach scale and they show and they teach you how complex systems work. Small and mid sized companies matter too. They give you a different kind of exposure. They make you and pull you closer to like decisions, executives, customers, trade offs, money. At a big company, you kind of learn one instrument really well, which is important. At a smaller company, you learn how the whole band works. Sometimes, believe it or not, without a song, while the song's being written. And the wrong question, which I hear a lot of people asking, is which company is safer? To me, the right question is where will I grow faster and build skills that travel? I'm learning a lot of this from my son, my 21-year-old. It's not advice that you hand down, it's a conversation you have to have together. A student with your parents, a parent with your students, explaining this to grandparents. So when I kind of look back on my last couple weeks and the holidays that are among us, where I've been recording these podcasts, you know, some writing, people aren't really panicking because jobs are disappearing. But there's a lot of uneasiness because the story that they were following and even telling just doesn't make sense any longer. And that is the magic moment. That's the magic moment. You might not feel magic at the moment, but that's the magic moment that I think we're in. We're not losing jobs. We're losing the map. And when the map changes or disappears and isn't real time GPS, the best thing that we can do, whoever you are, as parents, grandparents, teachers, leaders, is not just to repeat the old advice. Don't repeat the old advice and just do it louder. Think about and sit together and say, how do we navigate this new world? And that's what I would love, love, love for you to talk about at your table, envisioning it. I want to be there. So before I wrap this up, I just want to say this and end with this. I hope you give yourself the room over the holidays to think about what I just said. Think about the map. Give yourself the room to think and the room to say, you don't know yet, and the room to have conversations. Not having the right answer right now, it doesn't mean you're behind. No one does. But what it does mean to me is that you're paying attention. I think that's most important. And like my hope for recording this right over the holidays and releasing it right before the holidays was not to give solutions. 'Cause I don't think that's where we are. It was to try to spur, to give you language, give you permission. I think permission is really important to talk about what's changing. Talk about this at the table. Ask better questions. Don't just say, what are you doing? And stop pretending. Stop pretending that this old map still works. If anything about this episode sparked a real conversation, even an uncomfortable one, which I hope it does, I generally would love to hear about it. Email me, text me, whatever. What came up at the table? What surprised you? What shocked you about what people were thinking? What did people disagree on? And based on the conversation, what even shifted a bit? What shifted a bit? Those are the stories, and you being able to tell the stories that matter. That's how we learn. That's how we learn together. It's how we create our where we are now to what's next. So, in closing, however you're spending the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be on the road. I'm going to be at home. I hope you have a safe holiday. I hope you find the time to slow down, reconnect, and listen, not just to this podcast. And I hope you share this. Share it as a precursor. Share it as pre reading or pre listening, excuse me, before the holiday meal. But don't just listen to this podcast, listen to each other. I hope you guys have a great, great holiday season. Happy holidays to everyone, to your families, to your friends, to your colleagues. And I can't wait to see you on the other side. 2026 is going to be a magical year for us all. Probably the year with the most change we've ever experienced in our life. And I can't wait to do it with you. Happy holidays. Take care.